President Donald Trump has come down heavily on NATO after a meet with its Secretary General, Mark Rutte.
Well, in a post on Truth Social, Trump criticized the alliance for what he sees as a lack of support during the war in West Asia. He said, and I'm quoting him here, NATO wasn't there when we needed them, and they won't be there if we need them again. He also took an aim at Greenland yet again, calling the Danish territory big, poorly run piece of ice.
Important to note here, discussing his displeasure with NATO earlier this week, the US president had said that it all began with Greenland. Tensions were reportedly high when Rutte met Trump in Washington on Wednesday, and it was while speaking exclusively to CNN after the meet. He said US president is clearly disappointed with many NATO allies and that he sees his point. In fact, the NATO chief, however, said that it was a very frank, very open discussion between two friends.
Well, their meeting came just as Wall Street Journal posted an exclusive article that suggests that the Trump administration is in fact considering a plan to punish some members of the NATO alliance that he believes were unhelpful to the US and Israel during the war with Iran.
The proposal, which is now in circulation among senior administration officials, would involve withdrawing American troops from certain NATO countries and even repositioning them in countries deemed more cooperative. The US currently maintains approximately 84,000 troops across Europe.
Well, the Trump administration officials cited in the report noted that the plan stops short of full American withdrawal from NATO, an action that would, by law, require congressional approval.
All right, we have John Rosamando back with us. He's president of Viking Research Associates. Mr. Rosamando, talking about the Strait of Hormuz, there is clearly a lot of ambiguity over the same. As we speak, the strikes continue on Lebanon. And while all of this is happening, what do you think is the situation? Because there is a lack of clarity over who controls the traffic. And also, in your view, do you think even if a temporary ceasefire remains in place, there is security that is guaranteed as far as the ships that pass through the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, let's put it this way. Under international law, all traffic is guaranteed free and open passage. I mean, the Omani transportation minister put out a statement today in which he said that there would be no tolling. But the problem is, due to the assassinations of the IRGC leadership, every single provincial IRGC unit is acting on its own. So it's hard to say who really is responsible for anything right now and who's really running the country in Iran.
John, the White House press secretary, she mentioned that the traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has been increased because the same question was posed to her just a little over 6-7 hours ago during that press conference. And she said that the traffic has increased and gradually it will continue to increase. But if you just look at that 10-point plan from Iran, they mentioned very categorically, one of the points is continuation of Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. And that's not something that Iran wants to let go of, because if they've realized anything in these last 6 weeks, in spite of everything else, that they can really have leverage across the world as long as they control that strait. That's a strength that they figured out. Some people are even calling it, or analysts are calling it, Iran's actual nuclear weapon. It's the Strait of Hormuz. But at this point, the US president also perhaps wants in on that $500 billion gate that is perhaps possible if there is a charge or a toll levied on vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz. They're not going to let it go, the Iranis. It's too much leverage for them. Do you feel there is any possibility of it being opened up if Iran doesn't want it to be opened?
Well, I think that in that case, you start having to look at military options to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, because Iran is violating international law. It's against the UN Convention of the Law of the Sea to impede the passage of shipping in and out of straits like the Strait of Hormuz. And I think that the United Nations is being played for a fool with this, because Iran is a signatory of that treaty, yet it is completely violating international law, and nobody's talking about that.
In fact, international law, as you mentioned before I pass over to Samiksha, those posts coming out from the US president threatening that he will blow up power plants, civilian infrastructure, bridges, that's a direct threat, and none of that is keeping in line with international law. So that part of the rule book has completely been blown into oblivion from both sides, it's what it seems. But Samiksha, go over.
Yes, yes. Mr. Rosamando, talking about the talks that are to happen in Islamabad, that is, if they do happen on Friday. Talk to us about the kind of role you see J.D. Vance specifically playing, given that he's the one who is supposed to lead the talks, other than Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, who will also be a part of that visit to Islamabad from the US side.
Well, I think that sending J.D. Vance is a kind of conciliation, because he's been the one who has been trying to oppose any kind of war with Iran. I mean, he's been the source of a lot of leaks that were skeptical of U.S. intervention with Iran. So I think that sends kind of a message of conciliation, as opposed to Witkoff and Kushner, who Iran views as betrayed them twice in diplomatic negotiations.
All right, John, that's one perspective. The Iranians argue that it was in the middle of diplomatic talks that the war was started, so they feel it's a betrayal on their part. But what we can agree is that there is a complete lack of trust from both sides regarding anything that's continuing. It's been just a little over 24 hours since that ceasefire, and just look at the attacks that have taken place across the Gulf region, from Kuwait to UAE to Qatar, Saudi Arabia, all intercepting missiles even now, and Lebanon continues to get bombed from the other side. US is very much in favor of that, saying it was never part of the ceasefire. The Strait of Hormuz, not sure who it's being controlled by, and then Lebanon, whether it was even part of the ceasefire or not. This is the setting in which the US delegation is going to be heading to Pakistan, of all places. We understand how sturdy that nation is for talks in a scenario where the war and the trust factor is here. Let's just wait and watch, because this seems far from over. That was John Rosamando joining us. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you.